The Evil Within 2 is a game with quite a few interesting creature designs to its name. And while, to me, it doesn't quite hit the same quantity of interesting enemies as the previous entry in the series, it does have some of the best quality. So I thought that today it would be interesting to take a look at some of my favorite creatures to come out of this game. Keep in mind that this is my list, and as such will probably differ from yours, so feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. All that being said, let's kick this list off with the Lament is one of the creepiest enemies that you're going to come across in the Evil Within 2. I'd even go as far as to say that it's the cause of one of the creepiest encounters that I remember from my first playthrough of the game. That encounter being the Lament that we find down in the Marrow, inside of a tunnel filled with flammable gas. This encounter is one of the most memorable in the game because I believe it's the only time that the game puts you in a first-person perspective, bar the toggleable option that was added later. This, coupled with the fact that you couldn't really fight the creature on your first playthrough, and the echoing sound effects of torment coming from the unseen enemy, was really a chilling experience. However, that's not the only deadly encounter with this enemy. In fact, this is the only enemy that I really avoid, even in later playthroughs, because it's just that deadly. Not only can it one-hit kill you, but it can also rally other Lost in the area to its cause once it notices you. And that's all before you even talk about how truly spooky its design is. The creature is essentially several bodies all fused together, which is kind of a common thing in this game, but to me, the Lament is the creature that pulls off this design the best in terms of what I really think the melding of two separate bodies would look like. Unfortunately, the downside of this creature to me is that it really has no backstory that I'm aware of. And in that way, it's kind of a missed opportunity because given something more substantial to latch onto with this creature, I think it would have been much more memorable. But as it stands, it's just really freaky looking and powerful, which is enough to get it on this list, but not enough for it to go up in the ranks, unfortunately. Hysterics have easily my favorite animation out of any standard enemies in this game. I love how they walk around creepily until they notice you and then frantically charge at you as their name suggests. But I think what I like even more about them is their sort of non-introduction to the player. I believe the first one that I ever encountered was in an underground weapons bunker where you get the shotgun. The Hysteric just nonchalantly walks out from behind a pillar, and as you've been conditioned to do to this point, you just walk up behind it and stab it in the head. But it doesn't die. Instead, the creature comes at you in a blind fury, swinging its knife wildly as if the blow to the head didn't even faze it. It's something that you wouldn't really expect because, while the creature is distinct enough once you know it, it's not so different that you won't mistake it for a common Lost on your first playthrough. So in your first interaction with this creature, it can give you a pretty good scare. Outside of how it acts and its gameplay surprises, however, there's not much to this creature. It is a Lost, so it does have the interesting backstory of those creatures, though it's not distinct enough to get anything more outside of that category to tell us why it acts the way that it does. But even with the creature as is, it's still a great little encounter to have, and a foe that I enjoy seeing roaming the streets of Union with its creepy croaking and mindless sauntering. The Guardian is one of the main living artworks of macabre artist Stefano Valentini, and like all of his artwork, it's pretty gruesome. The design of this creature is essentially body parts from different people, all fused together to create one big hulking beast with a saw blade for an arm. And for how crazy that sounds, it's actually pretty effective. Outside of Stefano himself, this is the first enemy that you'll encounter in the game, and so it kind of sets the tone for you. That tone being, oh my god, I'm going to die here. I think what I like most about this creature would have to be its sound design and its shadowy backstory. First of all, I think this creature has one of the best sound effects in the game. Its giggling laughter as it prepares to murder you is pretty haunting, especially coupled with the always smiling main face of the beast. However, what I like even more is the mystery behind this creature. I like that the game gives you enough to piece together some clues as to what this thing could be based on, but doesn't spell it out for you. I wish other creatures in the game would have gotten a similar treatment, such as the mysterious head sculpture that you can find in the Visitor Center, or the story of Emily Lewis, which seems to relate to the Guardian in some capacity. It's interesting and fun to discuss. And so, for all those reasons, the Guardian earns the 3rd spot on this list. What can I say about Obscura other than that her design is incredible? Design-wise, she's probably up there with Shade for my favorite creature in the entire series. Her 3 legs leading up to a female torso that has a camera attached to her neck is just a really interesting concept, and 100% fits the character of Stefano perfectly, combining his love of photography and his love of mutilating the human body. Unfortunately, to me, she is kind of a letdown in how she's utilized. We don't really get much about her backstory, and her boss fights were kind of a letdown. Personally, I enjoyed the first one. It was an interesting gimmick, but it wasn't really a fight. It was a run-out-the-clock scenario. And as for the second one, you don't even have to fight her. Because of this, I don't really feel like we got a satisfying conclusion to what could have easily been my favorite enemy in this game. That being said, however, her design is just so damn cool. She even has a really great build-up, like her taking pictures of you in the dark after you find the severed head of Emily Lewis, or when she runs out in front of you in the hallway that you're walking down. She's just a really great enemy that I think could have been even better if just a little more was done with her. But, as it stands, she's still one of the most memorable parts of this game. And for that reason, she earns the 2nd spot on this list. Anima is a creature that, on the surface, I wouldn't think that I'd like. She just kind of looks like a ghostly version of Laura from the first game, or a single-headed ghostly version of the Guardian from this one. But while I don't think her design is necessarily that interesting, everything else about this creature is just phenomenal. Let's start with sound design. Personally, I play predominantly on the PlayStation 4, which, if you don't know, has a speaker inside of the controller, and it is utilized so well for Anima because it's so unexpected. I've played games that use the speaker before, but I don't remember another horror game that does. And when you hear her freaky voice coming out of nowhere from 1 foot in front of your face, it's pretty startling. Not only that, but her side mission is optional. In fact, I may be wrong, but I don't even think I found out about her until New Game Plus, which is always so interesting to me when I find something that substantial on a second playthrough. And all that's before we even get to her backstory, which, I'll be honest, I didn't understand until I did the video on The Lost, but now that I know it, just makes her so much more interesting, because she's not even real. Her existence is all in Sebastian's head, and she's a manifestation of Stem's dominating process of his mind, which makes it all make so much more sense and ties the 2 games together in a really fascinating way. It's just a great concept for an enemy that makes her just beyond the typical monster that you have to kill. And for that reason, Anima earns the number 1 spot on this list. Anyways, that's the video. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. I should also say that I didn't consider people like Stefano Valentini or Theodore Wallace because I see them more as characters rather than creatures, so they aren't really comparable to the others that are on this list. All that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.